Welcome to the video on strings in C. Before proceeding any further, you must complete the prerequisites that I have stated here. You must be familiar with strings in Java. You must have an idea about uh, how arrays work in C. You must be comfortable with pointers. I say this because pointers, strings, and arrays, they go hand in hand. If your base is not strong enough in pointers, you would have much trouble understanding the concepts that I'm going to discuss later in this video. And lastly, you should have some knowledge about the basic functions that were used for manipulating strings in Java that were defined under the string class. All right. So without further ado, let's begin. So what you will learn in this video? You will learn how to declare, initialize and define a string in C. You will learn how to take string inputs from the user. You will learn how strings are like character arrays, but there's a fine line of difference between them. And for the functions that are defined under the string class in Java, we are going to find their counterparts in C. And if they exist, we're going to learn how to use them. And if they don't, then we are going to try to make one ourselves. And lastly, we are going to do a case study on finding the largest word in a string. As this video tutorial is going to be longer, that is why this tutorial has been split in 3 separate videos. Part 1 consists of the takes care of the declaration, initialization, and definition of string in C, and how to take string inputs from the user, and we'll learn how strings are like character arrays but are slightly different. The second part would focus on finding the counterparts of the functions that are defined under the string class, and the last video would be about the case study on developing a program that will find the largest word from a particular string. So let's begin. So how do you declare a string in Java, or C for that matter? Well, before beginning, I must state that you must include the string.h header file to implement or access or use the functions that are defined under the string library, the pre-built functions that are defined under the string library. And you include this, or you have this line at the beginning of your code. While in Java, this did not need to be done because string class is imported by the compiler by default. That's why nothing special needed to be done to use the functions of the string classes. So in Java, we used to declare a string in this way: string followed by the identifier name, followed by the word that we wanted to store, and which the word should be enclosed in a pair of uh, quotations, double quotes. All right. Uh, and it can be declared in this way also. Notice that string here is not a data type, rather it is a class. And that is the reason why I can call the constructor here and pass the string matrix, so that string str is assigned the string matrix. All right. In C, definition of string rather can be done in several ways. The first way being this: we write car followed by the identifier name, which is followed by 2 square brackets, and then finally the string that we want to store. You should keep in mind that there's no data type rather called string in C. Strings are implemented as character arrays in C, but the difference being that the last element of the string is always a null character, whereas in case of a character array, the last element may or may not be a null character. It can be defined in this way too. Notice the change that I have defined the size of the array. You might think that the size is one extra than what is required, but that is not the case. Matrix is of length 6, but we also need to accommodate the null character present that needs to be present at the end of this, because that is what makes this thing a string. That is the reason, to accommodate the last character of null, We have written here 7. Now it can also be declared in this way, like you declare a static array. While the array consists of the several characters that make up the word matrix, and lastly, the last character should be a null character. This is what makes str a string. And if you omit the last character to be null, then it becomes a character array. Alright. So how to take input from the user? String inputs from the user. In Java, what we used to do, if you are familiar with the scanner class, we made an object of the scanner class, and then we used the function of the scanner class next to take in words from the user, and next line to take in sentences from the user, multiple words separated by spaces. In C, declaration of string goes as follows. This means that this word is a character array which can accommodate at most 1024 elements. As word is to be used as a string, therefore word can at most accommodate 1023 characters, because the last character has to be a null character. Same goes with sentence. While taking an input, we use the scanf function and we use the format specifier %s, and we pass word. Notice that I have not written ampersand, which is the address of operator, because word is treated the same as ampersand word 0, which means that word is a pointer to the first element of the word array. Alright. And if you want to take, this takes a single word from the user as an input. And if you want to take multiple words from the user, then we have to use this kind of format specifier. This is a circumflex character. What this means is that it would take all the characters as input except the enter. Therefore, as it encounters a new line character, it would stop taking the input. Well, let's see that in action. Alright, so let's declare our string here. Card word 1024 sentence 1024. Well, as we're going to use this capacity more than often, more than a number of times, therefore it's better to declare this as a constant, and we can do this by using the directive hash defined, and we can give a name to this constant as max buffer cap, which stands for capacity, and write 1024 and replace this 1024 by max buffer cap. And sentence by max buffer cap as well. Alright, so let's take an input, printf, enter word, scanf, %s, and word, and let us print that word. And while printing, we use the same format specifier as that was used while taking input, and we print the word. Let's see. So, for example, Batman. So it prints Batman. Let's see what happens if we write multiple words. Batman, Catwoman, Poison Ivy. It only takes Batman. Now, let's see if on changing this, it takes an entire sentence as an input. Better to use sentence here because sentence, and let's see that in action. Batman, Catwoman, Catwoman. It takes the entire sentence as an input. Alright, so let's head over here. Well, You could take input using scanf, but it is better to use getS to take in inputs. GetS can take an entire sentence as an input. It doesn't need to be passed in some parameters to take a single word or consider entire sentences. By default, it considers entire sentences. Alright, so let's see its use. Get alright. So instead of doing this, what I can do is get this sentence, for example. Alright, so let's see. Batman, Iron Man takes input like this even. Alright, so to print, as you've seen before, we can use the format specifier %s. Well, there's a slight bit of problem with mixed inputs. Well, let's see that. Suppose we want to take age from the user. We want to take the input from the user, its age and his name, and then print that out. Max buffer cap and int age. Alright, so enter your age. Your age. Now let's employ a scanf function in this regard. Scanf percentile s percentile d, comma, ampersand age. I don't know why I'm having this problem here. Let's not use getS. Let's use scanf to take the name as an input. Alright, so printf, enter your name. Enter your name. Let's take this in name. Alright, so I'm going to print out name. And printf percentile d age. So this is my declaration syntax error. Oh, sorry. Let's just run this program. So my age is 19, and see, it skips your name. Why does this happen? Well, this happens because what your input was during enter your age. Just think about that. It was 19, then an enter. Now what scanf does is that it takes the 19, but it skips the enter, the new line character, and that is still in the input buffer. So therefore, when you try to scan another string, so it takes that new line character and stores it in name. And in this case, it skips that new line character. That is why the entire input of name gets skipped. Now, what you can do in this regard, you can either employ a flush function and clear out the input buffer. So the input buffer in C is stdin. Let's see this working. So my age is 19 and my name is Ranajoy. So it does it fine, or else we can altogether just not use scanf to take this the string input, and it would work fine this way too. Achha, sorry, it should be name. Alright, so 19. Oh, we have to use a flush for doing that. I was sorry. So when you are taking a string input from the user after taking an integer, double, or float input, you must clear the input buffer of the redundant new line character. So that is why you must employ an flush stdin after you have taken an integer input and you want to take a string input after that. But if you take a string input before an integer input after, it would work just as fine. You don't need to employ the flush stdin thing. Alright, so that's it for this video. See you in the next one.